weekly look at all of the hot topics in HR.
Whether it's passive talent or it's active talent.
That's a soft skill that really gets undersold in the hiring process.
How to manage in the virtual environment.
You get a diverse, cultured group of people. It's a win-win for everybody.
More conversion from candidate leads.
What does that look like in this new virtual world?
Welcome, everyone. It is Thursday, noon Eastern time, and you know what that means. It is time for Talent Experience Live. I am your weekly host, Devin Foster, and this is your weekly look at the hot topics in HR, interviews with leaders in the industry, as well as hot new HR tech. And today we are talking just about that hot new HR tech, but don't be worried by any stretch of the imagination. We will still cover everything that you need to know in recruitment, talent acquisition, as well as talent management. Let's start with where everyone is tuning in from. I love to hear where you're watching from. I see comments already beginning to pour in. Hello, Abby. It is nice to see you. I also see that Giannis is joining from Wisconsin. I believe that he should be celebrating a NBA championship, but he did take time to stop at Chick-fil-A, so why wouldn't he stop at TXL as well? While you are in the comment section letting us know where you are tuning in from, be a friend, share this out to your network. Today we have a fantastic topic. We are talking about text to apply, everything that you need to know to fill high volume roles fast. And remember, if you aren't able to catch the full episode, you can always watch it on our YouTube page. That's Phenom People, or our blog. It's phenom.com/blog. Great write-ups there, as well as short digestible clips for those of you who may not be able to watch the entire episode because you have to take the dog out, kids are crying in the background, whatever the case may be. You can always check out the blog and get through this content. And it's also super easy to share. But like I mentioned, today we are talking about text to apply, everything that you need to know to fill high volume roles fast. We're talking about campaign tactics. We're talking about how this can help recruiters reach candidates faster, on the go, on the move. And since the world is opening up, so are the days of text me when you get here, text me a little bit later, hey, let's hang out, text me. And I can tell you firsthand that texting is always my preferred method of communication, unless of course I am driving, because texting is very dangerous, right? And that is the quickest way to get me to shout a profanity to you on the road. So don't text to your candidates while you are driving. Let's text them through our CRM and through a plethora of other ways. But before we jump into that, make your voice heard. I see Ruhi. Ruhi is chiming in from India. Welcome to the show. And now I want to give everyone a stat that really blew my mind. It was the average American receives 121 emails on a daily basis. Shout out to J. Crew on that one. And when you're reaching out to candidates, your messages can simply just get buried within your email. So I took it upon myself to put out a LinkedIn poll. And the question that I asked was, how many unread emails do you have in your inbox right now? And I gathered two insights from that. First is the majority of the 189 votes that this received are liars, right? They said 54% of people said they have 0 to 10 emails within their inbox. 13% said 10 to 100, 8% said 100 to 500, and 25% said 500 plus. I, for one, probably should have worded this a little bit differently because I think personal emails are where things get a little bit hectic. As I can see, when Jonathan Dale chimed in and said that he had 244,697 unread emails within his inbox. So let's say Jonathan was a candidate that you were trying to reach out to, right? How are you going to stand out of almost 250,000 emails? Another user on LinkedIn chimed in. Mark Grom said his work inbox is very tidy, but his personal email address that he's had for over 20 years has thousands of emails from brands being unread. So when we think about outreach to candidates, whether they just passively applied, they're a lead within your CRM, if you're shooting them an email, how are you really going to stand out when there are hundreds of thousands of emails? I think mine has well over 2,000, and I sponge it regularly to try and keep it nice and clean, but it's almost an impossible task. That's why you see recruiters reaching out on LinkedIn and also texting, which is today's topic. Today, we are talking about texting to apply and how to fill those high volume roles fast. Again, we do this show on a weekly basis, so don't forget to like and subscribe. Never miss an episode every Thursday at noon Eastern time. And the reason why I think texting is so important is even though email is on your phone, people check their phones 150 times a day. So text messages and the little notifications that we get, they're more likely to be read. And the stats back it up. Text messages have an open rate of 95 to 98%. Where emails are only 20 to 25%. So to go back to that example of JD or Jonathan, to stand out, I'm going to do some rough numbers here. He's probably not going to open that 20 to 25% of those 250,000. So it's going to be tough sledding to get in front of him. But today we have two very special guests joining us to talk about texting to apply. And the first one that we are going to bring on is Andrew O'Brien, lead product manager here at Phenom. So without any further hesitation, let's bring Andrew onto the show. Andrew, how are you?
Devin, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
I'm happy to have you on here. I have to ask a couple questions right off the bat. Is I know you as Obi. Is it okay if I call you Obi on the show?
Absolutely. I don't think you can resist.
Awesome. I'm glad that we got that out of the way. The next is the icebreaker question, Obi. So I know that I have a filthy email. I could pull it up and show you right now, but I'm not going to because there are thousands of unread emails. But what does yours look like, both professional and personal? Is it tidy like the rest of the liars on LinkedIn, or does it have 500 plus emails in it?
Each definitely has more than 500 unread emails. My work email is much tidier than my personal email. I definitely fall into the Jonathan Dale, Mark Grom group there. I think at least half of those are probably emails from you, though. So you don't have to email me so much.
I know the chatbot data report is coming out soon, and I cannot get my hands on enough data. But Obi, it's funny that you mentioned the difference between work emails and personal emails, right? Because if you're a recruiter out searching for talent in this kind of war on talent that we're having that seem to be brought back, you're not likely to email someone really on their work email, right? I think that's a quick way to get flagged. Candidates are always hesitant. I know when I used to call people on their work phones, they'd like, please don't ever call this number again. I posted my resume out in secrecy. I need to get in touch with you another way. So with that, Jonathan Dale chimes in and says, Andrew O'Brien, thanks for the mention. Absolutely. JD is a friend of the show, so always love to call him out. My next question for you, Obi, is what is the hype around text to apply? Obviously, texting is something that we have been doing for years. I know that my phone bill when I was a young individual was through the roof because texting wasn't included in my plan. So how exactly does it work when we think about the recruitment process?
Yeah, I also had some tough discussions with my parents when I was in high school as well, when I was texting a lot more than my plan allotted for. And a lot has changed since those days. Text to apply is really built around the convenience that it offers, not just to candidates, but also to recruiters. And if you look at a lot of the use cases that we're going to dive into over the next 10 to 20 minutes here, it offers a lot of convenience for the companies that are trying to hire. It's about combining the convenience, again, of messaging, the convenience of SMS, and functionality of your career site. It's about easily reaching candidates wherever they are. If they're sitting in traffic on the highway, if they're walking through city, if they're at your place of business and you're trying to hire, where a lot of these companies, their customers are the same people that they're trying to hire as well. So again, it's all about helping them find the right jobs and then creating leads and applicants for your recruiting teams to follow up with as well. As I mentioned, it typically involves some type of physical advertising, whether that's as simple as a flyer in a store or it's a billboard above a highway, depending on what type of budget you have. But yeah, it's really about connecting a specific keyword, such as Phenom Jobs, to a phone number, giving candidates instructions to text the phone number or text the keyword to that phone number, and then initiating conversation from there.
The one thing that I have to call out, Obi, is if a candidate's sitting in traffic, don't text them. We don't condone texting and driving on this program. But no, I completely understand. And you mentioned the convenience of it, right? And meeting candidates essentially where they are. And that's why we see them so often in convenience stores, in pharmacies, in retail environments, like you mentioned. I am shocked that I haven't walked into a local pharmacy or a local grocery store that says, text while you shop, right? Text for a job while you shop, because people are doing thousands of things at once. I can tell you that I have 30 tabs open on my browser right now. We're constantly multitasking. So giving that ability for a candidate to text to apply on the go has to be a competitive advantage when you're looking at the labor market as it is today. Now, Obi, on this show, we always talk about buzzwords, right? Buzzwords within the industry. And there's been a lot of noteworthy technologies that are being thrown around and talked about. We talk about AI, we talk about video, we talk about automation. Is text to apply almost a new technology in the sense of, I'm sure that there were recruiters ahead of the curve who were texting from their personal devices and reaching out to candidates in that sense, which has some risks. We'll get into that a little bit later. But when it comes to this data syncing into your CRM so you can communicate on an easier basis, is that new?
I think it's a new application of a lot of existing technology. And again, it's companies adapting, it's recruiting teams adapting to the preferred methods of communication that candidates have. SMS, you mentioned those stats earlier. You're about 5 times more likely to get a message read and responded to if a candidate is reading it over SMS or other messaging services, which I know we'll talk about a little bit as well, versus email. A lot of it is the sheer number of emails that everyone gets per day, and a lot of it is SMS is so much a part of our daily lives. And especially for people that are looking for work, that's top of mind for them. It's very urgent for them. So they're much, they're building that into their daily lives. And, we've certainly seen a lot of that over the last year plus, as everyone's working lives have become much more enmeshed with their personal lives as well. This is, where we've spent so much of our time staying in touch with our friends and family. So it's only natural that, once these avenues open for us as candidates and also as companies that are looking to find talent today in this kind of very unique, very competitive hiring environment that we're in right now, it's only natural that, if these avenues are available, you're going to see a lot of interest and a lot of adoption.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at the recruiting past, right, and the ways that it has changed for employers to reach candidates, it started off with just posting help wanted signs, right, as people walk through their town. Then the transition to job help wanted ads within newspapers happened. And then came along this crazy little thing called the internet, Obi, and everyone wanted to post their jobs on the internet. I've heard the crazy stories of, Career Builder and Monster back in the day where they would walk into rooms and essentially be the only shop in town and say, hey, if you want to hire people, you have to put your jobs here, right? Yep. So now as things evolve, as things become more mobile friendly, as we spend more time on our devices, it makes sense that is the next avenue, which is texting as opposed to emailing. If you want to text your loved one or your family or friend, whoever it may be, you're going to text them. You're not going to shoot them an email, except for my grandmother, of course. Bless her heart. She does still send weekly recap emails. And I promise you, that is one of the ones that I read. But Obi,
I would like to get on that newsletter.
Absolutely. The next thing is, we talked about some buzzwords, but another buzzword that comes around a lot is conversational AI. Obviously, if you are reaching out to a plethora of candidates, you can't single-handedly text them all at once. I've tried to keep up on some group texts with like 5 people on there. It's impossible to get your message in. So texting thousands of candidates at once, but also remaining personal to them. How is conversational AI used in texting to apply?
And I mentioned a few minutes ago, it's, text to apply is a new application of some existing technologies, a new combination of messaging and then also conversational AI. So instead of having candidates text a keyword to a phone number and getting a link back to the career site, you're actually able to engage with them directly over SMS. So what you're doing is you're avoiding that potential for the candidate to just drop off. Maybe they open, I think this is a very similar issue. People have dozens of tabs open at the same time too. So very easy for your career site to get lost in there. not as easy for a conversation to get lost in your messaging app, whether you're using iMessage, if you're using iOS, or the various different Android apps that are available, or a lot of the internet-focused messaging apps too, such as WhatsApp, for example. So yeah, conversational AI allows the candidate to stay within the channel that they first interacted with you. So it would be kind of akin to if you sent someone an email and you would respond basically saying, go to our career site, something like that. You're just adding barriers for that candidate and encouraging in a lot of ways them to drop off or them to say, okay, I'll do this later, basically. So conversational AI allows you to capture their attention in the moment. It allows you to collect all the same information that you would collect on your career site as well. So you could point them again to that landing page on the career site, or you could just use conversational AI to greet the candidate, engage with them, collect the information that you need, and give the candidate something worthwhile out of it too. So in our case, what we focus on is collecting appropriate information so we can make the best job recommendations for candidates, and then allowing them to go ahead, encouraging them to apply. But at the very least, we're building leads for your recruiting team where you can reach out almost immediately to them, depending on, if you're hiring for a specific location, maybe you have a new location that's opening or reopening, I guess, in today's case. And, I know a lot of what's happening right now in the hiring landscape is candidates are getting hired like that. There's a lot of companies offering signing bonuses that, that would have been unheard of, 2 years ago for a lot of employers that are kind of desperately looking for workers right now. So, this is really a way that it's quick, it's convenient, and it gets candidates what they're looking for, and also gives your recruiters, new people that they can go and interact with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the metric that stands out to me on some of that vital information that needs to be gathered is, I believe industry wide, the number of applications completed on typical career sites is around 4%, right? So that means only 4 people out of 100 people that visit your career site are clicking that apply, are ending up in your applicant tracking system so that you can outreach from there. But if you incorporate something like a text to apply or like personalization on your career site, you're able to gather some little pieces of information so that you can then send outreach or then follow up with specific personalization. And Obi, one of those personalization tactics that I wanted to ask about is, I know a lot of companies have different, kind of terminology that's unique to their organization. So are you allowed to include specific parameters around conversational AI? For example, if I was to send out a campaign here working for Phenom, which is spelled with a PH, and I said, hey, we want you to join the Phenom family, and we spelled family with a PH because it was on brand. Is that able to happen, or does the dreaded autocorrect come in and say, what the duck does this mean?
No, absolutely. And I think one of the big pieces of text to apply is not just following like a rigid pattern, but being able to customize not just the messaging that you're presenting, like at the beginning of the conversation, you're trying to build some type of rapport with candidates as they come through. You want it to be engaging. You want them to continue the conversation, but you also want to collect the most relevant information. So it has to be relevant, of course, for the candidate, so they can find the jobs that meet their interests the best. But also, you need to collect the information that allows your recruiters to evaluate, is this person the right fit for the specific job? So if it's even beyond building a personalized profile so you can provide job recommendations, it's also around asking things like screening questions to see if a candidate actually is qualified for a given position or a group or job category that they're interested in too. So, you have this kind of framework around how does a candidate get in touch? How does a candidate initiate that conversation? But you're also looking to make it as relevant and as meaningful of an experience for both the candidates and your recruiting team as well. So need that flexibility.
That makes sense. Absolutely. The next question that I had, and if you have questions for Andrew or Obi, as I call him, you feel free to hop into the chat. He's lead product manager here at Phenom. We're talking everything texting to apply. Obi, you mentioned different apps or applications that may be used as well as, WhatsApp or WeChat. What are the differences when it comes to technology versus a standard SMS as opposed to WhatsApp or WeChat?
The biggest difference is the underlying connection that powers them. So SMS is technology that's a few decades old at this point. It really only gained rapid adoption in the early 2000s, maybe the late 1990s. And it works through the wireless carriers that you use, the main wireless carriers that everyone has in the US at the very least. So there's kind of a unique setup between how it works in the US versus how we see a lot of messaging being done, especially in Europe and outside of North America. The main difference is a lot of it is happening through the wireless carriers versus if you look at some messaging services like WhatsApp being the main one, there's some others like Telegram, WeChat is obviously very big in China. Those are really internet powered services. So that's kind of the main underlying technology, but the use cases are the same. Of course, the UI is different from app to app, but the main underlying technology is just the difference between what is an internet connected service versus what can be used, if you're not to say off the grid, but you're not connected to Wi-Fi or anything like that.
That's awesome. And I think it's vital to use both because with some of those internet services, I know I have a WhatsApp application on my phone, and you're able to kind of set up your profile. You can put some of that EVP that companies spend thousands and thousands of dollars on within these campaigns, and it could lead directly to a company culture page. It could lead directly to specific jobs that you need to hire, or you can make a fun little, kind of avatar as well that represents your organization. Obi, before we go, I do have one last question for you. And
yes, please.
Absolutely. Why is it so important for not only candidate or recruiters not to text on their own personal mobile devices, but also to have technology that syncs with your CRM or with your other aspects, as opposed to a separate and disparate tech stack?
Sure.
The two-part question there, but it's the last question.
Of course. So there's a few different pieces to that conversation. I think when you're first starting out, the implementation of these services, if they're all connected, makes it that much easier. You don't have to worry about connecting a texting product to your applicant tracking system or your CRM or any other kind of databases that you might be using to track candidates and track your applicants. The other piece of it is you can make use of all the different, say, personalization features that much easier as well. And, my discussions, I know the rest of our product team here at Phenom, our discussions with our clients, our users, it really revolves around trying to make this as simple as possible for their everyday users to easily access these features and to use them as consistently as possible. So I think everyone, whether you're in the recruiting space or not, you want to use as few systems as possible throughout your day. So if you have a place where you can manage all of your conversations with candidates, whether they're happening over SMS or WhatsApp or email, you can manage, all of your other activity that's part of your day as well. There's so much more that goes into it than just communicating with candidates every day. You're doing dozens of other tasks throughout the day as well. So if you're constantly jumping between different platforms, different services, it's easy to lose focus, and it gets frustrating after a while. You're trying to remember where you're doing everything. So, having that platform effect allows you to make so much more use of different features that are part of that platform, and also makes it easier on your users to, stay connected, easily, respond as quickly as possible. They're not forgetting to go check a different system. So that's really the big benefit of having this platform effect and having texting technology, whether it's conversational AI, whether it's live conversations between recruiters and candidates, that is all part of one platform and all synced together.
That makes sense. And it reminds me of, bear with me on this example, Obi, but I'm going to take you back to a time when this mustache was still in style, the mid-90s. Do you remember coffee tables when they would have a remote for the stereo, a remote for cable, a remote for the TV, all of these remotes? enter the universal remote where you could control everything at once and you'd only have to find one remote that was smushed into the couch, not 6 different ones. That's the same sort of application here. Is if you want to reach out to a candidate, it should be succinct with the candidates that are in your CRM, not bouncing back and forth and having to make changes all the time. So shout out to the people that created the universal remote, as well as the people that are now connecting all of this talent acquisition stack. They're called Phenom, and the universal remote is now called Talent Experience Management. But Obi, thank you so much for joining. I officially paid the bills on that segment. I can't wait to have you on again. You look spectacular. The hair looks slicked back. You're ready for the NHL draft coming up.
That's right.
And
I'm gonna try a lot these days.
Exactly. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. And we'll chat soon on the future of text to apply and chatbot, like I mentioned.
Yeah. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Devin.
Cool. Have a good one. That was Andrew O'Brien, lead product manager here at Phenom. We talked about some of the intricacies and technical differences of text to apply and why it's so important that it needs to be succinct within your CRM, within your talent management system, or within your talent experience management system. Shout out to all the Phenom customers out there. But we're not done. We have another guest today. Today, I am joined by Michelle Oliveri, which I believe I pronounced correctly because I asked before the show. She is customer success manager here at Phenom, and she's going to talk about some customer use cases and real world examples of how text to apply is succeeding and why it is so important. So with that, let's bring on Michelle. Michelle, how are you?
Hi, Devin. How are you?
I am doing well. This is the highlight of my week, doing the show every single Thursday. And and now it's even better that you are joining the program today. But Michelle, I know you're familiar with it. You've never missed an episode, right? Even though your schedule is very busy with customer success, because we're seeing so much success with Phenom. My first question for you is, what does your email look like, both personal as well as professional? Are you a liar like the rest of LinkedIn?
I am not a liar. I used to have a really awful inbox, but now I am close to as inbox zero as I can get. I would say I probably have less than 20 messages in both my professional and personal emails. I try to keep everything very organized and pocketed away these days.
That is great. You must hit that unsubscribe button regularly.
I don't. I just, bucket it.
That's great. That's great. And for those of you, don't hit the unsubscribe button on Phenom because we're constantly pushing out great content every single week. Definitely hit the subscribe button. We promise not to bombard your email. But Michelle, I know you oversee a ton of our customer relationships here. Mm-hmm. And I know that for recruiters, when they're reaching out to candidates, trust is always such a big aspect of it, right? Yeah. These individuals are going to spend more time with their work coworkers than probably their family at the end of the day. So making sure that trust is built early on for some of those tough to have conversations, like when you plan on resigning, what compensation is going to be, what benefits look like. My next question for you is, how do you build trust via text, right? It's almost informal. Things get lost in translation all the time. Is it something that you need to ask a candidate beforehand and say, hey, is it all right if I text you? Or is it something that you can kind of gauge based on the position that they're looking at or interested in, or so on and so forth? How does that trust build?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And especially when it comes to texting on a one-to-one basis versus sending out more of like a marketing or a campaign, that definitely depends on what kind of consent you need to get from the candidate. But when it comes to building trust, when you think about the different modes of communication that you typically see from recruiters, texting is not something you see all the time, and not a lot of companies do it. So I think when you're meeting the candidate where they are and you're texting them and they're knowing that they're texting with a real human, it builds a lot of trust there. And also it really cuts down the time for them to get quickly back to you. So I know I personally, when I was interviewing with Phenom, a short 6 months ago, that I was texting with our HR people, and I felt that it was a much more personalized conversation than answering an email, which was fantastic.
Yeah, I know a stat right here is 90% of text messages are read within the first 3 minutes of receiving them. I know you shared that with me. But my question is, obviously that's probably taking into consideration texts from your mom, texts from your grandparents, texts from your loved ones, your children, whatever it may be. Do recruiters see the same amount of success when they're reaching out to candidates, or is it a little bit more maybe delayed where you're on a work meeting and you're not going to respond as quickly as you would your loved one? Is it around 3 minutes, or is it maybe 15 to 20? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I mean, I can tell you from what we track today for analytics, it's not something that we track from like a systematic standpoint. But what I've heard from customers, and we really get super strategic around like when you're going to send these text messages. You have to get a sense of your work schedule of your candidate, what current positions they're currently in, because that's going to make a difference of when they're going to text you back. But again, like I know that if someone's texting me, whether it's like to confirm an appointment or to schedule something, I am more likely to answer that person a lot quicker than I am my sister who's going to ask me what I'm doing for the weekend. So I think it depends on the urgency that you set for the candidate and also timing.
That makes sense. Now, obviously you talked about a lot of clients using it right now, but it's not something that is typically thought of when you think of a recruitment process, because oftentimes it's a buttoned up process, right? You have to go through strict emails, strict phone screenings, things like that. Are companies finding success with this? And what's the best success story that you've heard with your customer conversations?
Yeah, a lot of our customers are seeing great success with text to apply. I think one of the really common success stories and the one I like the best are through hiring events. So we see, you're getting a lot of people coming to these events. You're looking to hire a large number of people at one time. Say hi to my dog, Jace, who is always hanging out in the background.
I love it.
He's my coworker mascot at this point. He's always there. But yeah, like when you're thinking of a hiring event, you're thinking of a lot of people coming up to you, wanting to talk to you. If you're hiring for a large number of people at one time, you might want them to fill in an application right then and there. So being able to use text to apply is super easy. It's a quick flow to gather somebody's information and then take them right over to the career site to have them fill out the application. And they can do it all within, a couple minutes.
That's awesome. This is something that I would love to have had access to when I was a university recruiter, because I know that there are times at events when maybe things are winding down or your booth isn't as busy as it typically would. If you can reach out to everyone that's registered to that event or everyone that's interested in your organization that attends that university or is attending that day and say, hey, no line over at XYZ company's booth, stop by and chat with Devin, chat with Michelle, whoever it may be, is a great way for them to, number one, look at their phone and probably read that text message within moments, right? They're probably not scanning through their email or anything like that. So it makes sense that would be successful. So that's one example of like a time of day or use case where somebody might do it. But what are some other ways that organizations may be using this? Are there specific campaigns that they're mass texting out their candidates based on the industry that they're in?
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of success, I would say, around like healthcare, retail, and manufacturing. But at least, with my customers that I'm seeing the most success. And I would say like outside of hiring events, when you're thinking of sending out mass campaigns. So if you're talking to somebody, let's say like via email, maybe you had a phone screen with them, maybe it's somebody that you're sourcing from even like a hard to fill role. And you've had some conversations with them, you see that they're a pretty great candidate, you know that their schedule is super busy. So you don't really want to reach out to them via email. They're not going to answer their email. They're not checking their email all the time. Maybe you've had that experience with them, prior. So using text and saying like, hey, if you easily fill out, text this keyword back to me, it'll take you through this flow. You'll be able to give me some of your information and then you can also apply. That's a great way to do that. And also on the flip side of that, even if somebody does go through the text to apply flow through their phone, they don't click on that application at that time. You're still gathering a ton of information on that candidate that you can use, again, to reach out to them.
Yeah, that's one thing that always jumps out at me. I'm very observant of text to apply signs whenever I'm out and about in a convenience store or driving past a fast food place. And I text to apply, or 2,500, whatever the number may be, and it just shoots me over a link directly to a web page. Yeah. And with phishing and things like that being such a concern in today's society, if you get sent a link, some candidates may be hesitant because of credit card fraud, because of all sorts of things, to just click that link. So having that information and that conversation back and forth where you can say, hey, this is Phenom. We would like to have you to the family, right? Or add you to the family. And it has that pH and all of those different aspects are probably help building trust. One of the industries that you had mentioned was specifically the healthcare industry. And I know nursing is a very challenging role to fill. It was before the pandemic. It still is now. And I was chatting with a colleague, Cliff, a few weeks back, and I may have mentioned this on previous episodes, but empathy is so huge in building trust when it comes to candidates. And he had mentioned that there was a healthcare company we worked with where they sent out a campaign at 4:00 in the morning, specifically to night shift nurses who have visited the site in that time frame and expressed interest, but never crossed that finish line, never completed the application. So my question is for you, if you're going to send out a campaign at 4 a.m. to a specific group of individuals, no matter what industry they may be, it may be the night shift at the local warehouse, it may be nurses, do you have to stay up till 4:00 in the morning to press send? And how important is it to have that conversational aspect afterwards if you don't, so that they can immediately ask questions and get answers when you send that out, right? I don't think any recruiter wants to be up at 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah. So you do not have to be up at 4:00 in the morning to schedule a campaign to go out at that time, which is amazing that you can schedule that. So you can work on that candidate's kind of time frame and the time that works best for them. So they will still be able to go through that conversational flow with text to apply, which is great. So maybe if they have like an additional question that's not, part of like the application, we could always have some like fallback responses around like, you're reaching me outside of my business hours. I'll definitely get back to you, when I can. But I mean, they're still able to kind of get to where we need them to get to on the career site, which is great, to get them start asking questions to, ask at a later date as well. So you can get back to them when you're now awake.
That makes sense. Sebastian chimes in and says, loves that 4 a.m. story. So very powerful and true. I think we've all kind of reached those breaking points. I know I have with previous companies, which brings me to my next question. Aside from that masked text campaign, how are organizations posting out some of those text codes? Are they using billboards? Are they using their own equipment or trucks? Are they putting up signs? Are they tagging stop signs with stickers or anything like that? How are organizations using this? And are they beginning to get a little bit creative when it comes to, hey, are you a little bit fed up with your job? Text XYZ to 2,500 or whatever it may be and ask about XYZ jobs. How are organizations using it in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, I see it in a couple different ways. I think events probably are the top ones just because you get a lot of traffic at one time and it's a really quick way to get somebody engaged right away. I know I personally see like driving. There's a couple of huge actual healthcare companies around where I live, and you can see outside, they have the signs all over their front lawn that's saying, interested in working here. I don't remember the exact language, but, text so-and-so to apply. But I'll have to start doing what you're doing and texting and see kind of what their flow is to get some insider, detail of how we're a little bit different than other vendors. But yeah, I'm typically seeing a lot of signs. I have customers that when they're sending out SMS campaigns, so maybe they want to add a little bit more personalization around the messaging, but they're also including that short code. So then, that text code. So the candidate can then text back with that, and then it takes them through that flow. So there's a couple different ways. And then also through email. So if someone, if they're reaching out to maybe internal employees, and they want them to, maybe use this at a later date, or they want them to refer somebody, they can send out an email to maybe like have some type of contest or something like that. So there's all different ways that people use it. I don't have any customers that use billboards at this point, but if I find one, I will definitely let you know, because I think that's a really awesome way to gather someone's attention for sure.
Absolutely. No, I completely understand. And the other way that I've noticed, you mentioned email. Regular old snail mail. It still exists. I still get thousands and thousands of coupons in the mail. You think about your electric bill, your cable bill, a lot of those things, if you haven't signed up for e-communications, still come via the mail. And think about the amount of people that's crossing hands with, right? It may be your front desk associate, maybe the mail person, it may be somebody who's picking up your trash who's just had it. It's out there forever, and it's a living in breathing way to bring in candidates 24/7 when your recruiters may not be reaching out, or somebody doesn't know about your organization. And the billboard story, Michelle, I love personally because I worked in the banking industry previously, and I remember there being some frustrating days. And 5 o'clock is kind of when I was out the door, right? I was a clock watcher at that point in time. And if somebody had targeted me with a competitive bank or whatever it may be, with a billboard outside of my business park that says, tired of doing this at 5, even with electronic billboards, right? Text XYZ and find your next opportunity. I think it would be so successful because you never know who is having that rough day and who wants a change of pace. My last question for you, Michelle. If you don't have an example, I do, but I would love to hear if you know of any horror stories from recruiters texting from their personal devices as opposed to via a system, because it can get confusing from time to time. So have you heard anything? And if not, it's okay. I can fill in the blank space.
Not from our customers, but actually a colleague had told me a horror story this morning. We were actually talking about this episode today. And when she was a recruiter, this person was relocating and had sent an Airbnb room and said, "Is this room good for you?" And the person did not get the job, but it was on her personal cell phone. So that gentleman as a candidate made a mistake, obviously, and texted the wrong person, texted the person who was recruiting him for a position. But that's the only one I've heard of. Thank goodness I have, with our product, I don't think we would hear many horror stories because we don't use personal cell phones, but I have been fortunate enough to not have or hear a ton of horror stories when it comes to texting candidates from a personal phone. So I would love to hear yours, Devin.
No, I would love to share it. I was recruiting in the staffing agency, and if individuals couldn't come into the office to meet in person, we'd oftentimes FaceTime, right? This is pre-Zoom days, right? Zoom wasn't a household name at that point. It wasn't trading for X, Y, and Z on the stock ticker, but we'd FaceTime, right? So I had an interview with a candidate at probably 3 o'clock on a Friday. Friday's done. I go home, change, get ready, crack open a beer. I sit down on the couch, and all of a sudden I get a FaceTime from somebody else, and I guess it was that candidate who accidentally FaceTimed me. And I thought, this can't be a good situation. There's nothing good that can come out of FaceTiming somebody on a Friday night. Alcohol is involved. Those things kind of need to be separate, and they run into a ton of compliance issues as well. I know I've heard stories of recruiters texting from their phone, candidates sending inappropriate things, maybe not unexpected or not intentionally or whatever it may be. But if you're going to go to human resources or anyone about that, you'd have to hand over your entire cell phone, right? There's
Correct.
no way to not do that. And a lot of people are very coveted of their data and of their personal devices per se. So if you have a running log of all of the interactions within a CRM where you can see exactly what they said, not only to you, but to the automated service, to the mass service, and you can see that correspondence, it's super easy to jump in there and maintain that you are in compliance and that everyone is being appropriate at all times. But that is my short story about a horror story from texting to apply. We did a webinar a couple months back. We had Nancy Gray Stockybaum on there. I'll probably drop the link in the comments section after this because it was a great webinar. But with that being said, thank you so much for joining me today, Michelle.
Thank you so
awesome.
Much.
I love your colleague in the background. That's spectacular.
He loves hanging out.
Can't wait to have him on the show to talk about dog treats next week. That'll be a must-see episode. But I wish you nothing but the best. I'll let you get back to your busy day and keeping everyone happy with text to apply as well as the full Phenom TXM suite. So thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. That was Andrew O'Brien, lead product manager here at Phenom, as well as Michelle Oliveri, which I know that I crushed that time, customer success manager here at Phenom. Before we sign off today, don't forget to like and subscribe our content. We do this show every single week, Thursday, noon Eastern time on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, I believe Twitter, not sure about that one, but the other ones definitely exist. And you can always catch the full recap on phenom.com/blog. We are constantly pushing out great blogs as well as great content on a weekly basis. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Before you go, I do want to talk about last week's episode. We had Lifetime on and talked about how they are winning at video testimonials. I think we all know that who can tell a story better about your company than the people actually building it, the people going to work and giving their all from 9 to 5 every single day. User-generated video content is the reason why it is so important right now. It's cheaper, it's faster, it's easier to do than hiring a studio or bringing in professional camera people. People can film video within the comfort of their own homes. And Lifetime chatted about specifically the invaluable benefits of TA leaders who are hiring top-notch talent and how they were using, user-generated video. So with that, let's air the clip.
In the past, it would take maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks to get the content back. Nowadays, you send this link out with your guidelines for what you want them to talk about, and you're getting that back in 1, 2, 3 days even. And absolutely, as part of them being in a comfortable environment where they can make sure, they have the right take when they submit it, you definitely get more, natural and engaging content.
That was Mick and Andrew from Lifetime talking about the time saved they got from using user-generated video content. Speaking of time saved, today we talked all about it. If you're joining late, you can always catch the recap on YouTube or on our Phenom blog. But texting to apply is certainly going to save time as well. You don't have to stay up 24 hours to be sourcing candidates. With that being said, that wraps it up for today's episode. Definitely tune in next week. We're talking about job descriptions with Amit from Clickify. So don't miss that episode, 12 noon Eastern time. Special shout out to Abby, Rui, Jonathan, Sebastian, and Giannis from Minneapolis for tuning in today. Giannis, go enjoy your championship. And with that, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their weekend, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.